Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of conversation, self-love, self-care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. I'm Lady Bounce.
And I'm Picket Fence.
We have a special guest today, S. Ali Myers in the building. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, Pickett, you got the Mindfulness Minute for us.
Or the Mindfulness Minute today comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. Book of Mindfulness. It's called The Miracle of Mindfulness. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt from it. This excerpt is called A Day of Mindfulness. Every day, every hour, one should practice mindfulness. That is easy to say, but to carry it into practice is not. That's why I suggest to those who come into meditation sessions that each person should try to have one day reserved, one day out of the week that you devote entirely to the practice of mindfulness. And this principle, of course, every day should be your goal, every hour, every minute. But the fact is that very few of us have reached such a point in our lives. We have the impression that our family, place of work, and society rob us of that time. So I urge that everyone set aside one day a week, Saturday perhaps. If it is Saturday, then Saturday must be entirely your day, a day of during which you are completely the master. Then Saturday will be the lever that lifts you up into the habit of this practicing of mindfulness. Every worker in peace or in service of community, no matter how urgent his work is, the right to that day should be with you. So that's just a little excerpt on mindfulness. Once again, that comes from Thich Nhat Hanh, The Miracle of Mindfulness.
Wow, so a whole day. Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, hold
on.
on.
A whole day of nothing
Reflect
but
on it.
the way my life is set up, Pickett, I don't see that happening. So Brother Ali, can you help people like me who don't have a full day? Give me some tips.
As far as mindfulness,
Yes.
Or even reserving a day for yourself to do focus on you and your practices.
I got you. Define mindfulness for me.
Well, I know a lot of people look at it different ways. For me, mindfulness is just being observant of everything around, being mindful of everything that is around you, things that are going on, things that you need to take care of, things that may be happening with your family, and holding that in balance, but at the same time being aware of it.
Very well. What's your definition for mindfulness, ma'am?
Mine is similar. Mine is more being present in the moment. So whatever that moment is, I'm conscious of it. If I'm eating, I'm really tasting this food. This orange really tastes like an orange. It tastes sweet. It tastes a little tangy. Or even when I'm driving to work, I'm driving to work, and this is the way I go to work, and I make a left turn here and then a right turn here. So I'm trying to focus on whatever I'm doing at the moment and filling my mind with what I'm doing in the moment, which is sometimes hard to do, especially when I go to meditate, because those other thoughts creep in of stuff I'm supposed to be doing or should have done or should have said or stuff like that. So I'm getting better at my practice of mindfulness. So I have to, start slow with those small steps, like being, conscious of what I'm eating and conscious of what I'm doing and thinking about it at that moment.
So you basically both alluded to it. Mindfulness is just being conscious of your thoughts, just being aware of your thoughts. I think that's a pretty simple working definition. So do you have to remind yourself to breathe?
No.
No.
Do you have to remind yourself to blink?
No.
Sometimes.
You have to remind yourself. For the most part, though, you don't really think about, I'm blinking. I'm going to blink right now.
Right.
When most humans eat or consume food, they do it unconsciously. That's why sometimes you can be watching a movie and before you know it, that whole bag of chips, you just got a bag. You feel me? There's no more chips left. So we can go on and on showing all the different things that we automatically do. Our thoughts are another automatic function of the human anatomy. Our thoughts. So the way to train being mindful is you have to practice mindfulness. So what I would recommend is, like, next time you eat, be mindful of every bite you take. Some people even go a step further and they call it intuitive eating, where they're very in tune with their eating cycle. They don't worry about calories, they don't worry about so much what they're eating, but they're very in tune with what they're eating. So I would say when you eat, take a bite and really think about it. Be very conscious and don't do anything else. The mind has a one-track system. That's why you have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. People say they can multitask, but are you really multitasking? You're consciously focused on one thing, and your subconscious mind is doing everything else. So to end this long soliloquy, just next thing you do, just pick out an activity and focus on being conscious with it. It could be a conversation, it can be walking, it could be anything, like when Pickett does the walk. You know what I mean? Don't listen to any music. Listen to your breath and the steps. Before you know it, you'll be in a meditative zone. Meditation is just repetition. That's why when they put you under hypnosis, it's a repetitive thing. That's why binaural beats, isochronic tones, meditative tones, they're all repetitious. So in order to get mindful, you have to be cognizant. You have to practice that consciously. Then it becomes subconscious.
Word up. Word up.
I would just like the record to I would just like the record to show and reflect that MC Picket Fence, multitasking is not a thing. That has been officially put out there by the spiritual teacher himself. Multitasking is not a thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I mean, I believe it. I be trying to get a lot done. So, I mean, but I believe it. I believe that it's not a thing. So you talked about consciousness, and you talked about being mindful. Say somebody is just coming into the spiritual path. What are some things that they can do to stay focused on that spiritual path?
First, they have to define what spiritual path is to them. I'm big on working definitions, because Lady Bounce may say spiritual path, you may say spiritual path, and I may say spiritual path, and we're talking about three completely different things. So first, I would tell the aspirant to define spiritual path. Then next, I would say, what was the first thing you were drawn to? What was the first thing you were attracted to? Was it yoga? Was it meditation? Was it herbs? Was it magic? Was it Tai Chi, Qigong, altar work, etc., etc.? What was the first thing you were attracted to that was outside of mundane school or even religion or anything that your parents told you? Something that was spiritual and that you were attracted to. And I would begin practicing that. I would consume information, but more importantly, I would apply the information. Because we know that knowledge isn't power, applied knowledge is power. Especially in 2021 and the so-called age of misinformation, as I like to coin it. We're inundated with information, but we're not inundated with people who have an experience based off the information. Simply put, more people are researching and consuming content than actually applying it. So I would say get into a practice ASAP, you know what I mean, like yesterday.
Word up. I like that. So in your particular practice, and I'm a student of yours, for people that don't know, Ali is my spiritual teacher. And in the practice you teach, you talk about God's self-realization.
For sure.
Can you break that down for our audience?
Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. God became man so man can become God. When you look at all the ancient religions, they have a genesis in what you would call self-deification, or claiming your higher divinity. If you're not comfortable with the word self-God realization, just look at it as the ultimate sign of self-improvement. Just look at it as self-improvement on steroids. Most people, and I would say probably 85%, according to the Nation of Gods and Earths, I'm not a member, but I vibe a lot with what their teachings are. But 85% of humanity is dumb, deaf, and blind. And I always tell people, like, think about the people in your circle. How many people do you know are physically, mentally, and spiritually fit? How many people? You may not want to answer that, but you can come up with an answer on your own.
Right.
Assuming you can count them on less than one hand. Can we shake our head or shake our head no if I'm right or wrong?
Right.
You're
So
right.
my point.
I have friends that fit all those spaces, but sometimes they lean too far into one and too far into the other. So, like you said, when I think about those who are balanced in all those areas, it is less than one hand.
Okay, so my point of bringing that up is that it's harder to aspire to be something greater than what you've been conditioned to be. It's easier to be a human. It's easier, and I'm not knocking anyone, please don't twist my words. But it's easier to go work for someone than to create jobs that allow you to have employees. It's easier to buy a house than it is to your own. It's easier to join a community than to start one. You feel me? It's easier to watch YouTube than to start a YouTube channel. But it's easy just to be a regular human. We call that ordinary. To be something greater is called extraordinary. Therefore, you have to do something extra. You have to do things that other people aren't willing to do. When you listen to successful people, they always tell you that there was a period where all they did was their work. Whatever their task at hand or their life's calling, that's all they did. Then it got to a point where that life's work or that task became something tangible that helped people, and then they got income on their own themselves. It was reciprocal. So once again, in order to be self-God realized, you have to know that you're greater than humanity. You have a divine spark within you. We know this intellectually, but most don't look. There's two movies. One is The Matrix. That whole time, Neo realized that he was the one. I'm pretty sure if I remember that correctly. Like he had to claim some sort of something greater than what he thought he was before, but it was already within him. Nothing changed, just a shift in consciousness changed. Another movie, and this is one of my favorite movies, a very occult movie, Enter the Dragon. Or not Enter the Dragon, pardon yourself, that's a great movie too. But The Last Dragon with Bruce Leroy. And the reason it's a cult flip because you think it's just a little hood spoof or something like that. You don't think it's that serious. But during that whole movie, he was searching for the master. And he went back to his master and he was like, I looked everywhere, master. I cannot find the next master. And his master said, you have looked everywhere but once, because he didn't look within himself. And at the final scene, when he fought Sho'nuff, it finally activated. He was at a low point, about to get his butt kicked. You know what I mean? Sho'nuff was about to do a man real grimy. But he realized that he was a master. And Sho'nuff was like, who's the master? He was like, I am. And then he glowed. He glowed.
Yeah.
Very occult. I'm not going to give it away. Do your research. But that's all metaphysical principles that they were outlined in that movie. So in order to be self-God realized, you have to do something greater than what you've been conditioned to do. You have to understand that you have a spark of divinity and you have to execute it to the best of your ability. And then one day it will just click like everything. And I believe it's Malcolm Gladwell. He called it the tipping point, where you do something so much and then it finally clicks, and then you realize. That's the most simple answer I can give you.
Oh, that was very detailed, very detailed. Like I just mentioned before that you are my spiritual teacher. So my next question would be, who was the spiritual teacher that put you onto the path, or not necessarily put you onto the path, but helped you along the path?
Okay. For the record, I say this just to maintain my humility and out of respect for you, I don't view myself as a spiritual teacher. or teacher, but I understand I have people that call themselves students of mine or whatever. But to answer that question directly, there was two beings that influenced me tremendous. Actually, there was three beings. One was my maternal grandmother, peace and blessing be upon her. She was my first teacher. And I spent many of years, I was raised by my grandparents along with my mother. And I spent many years just with her. And she taught me about psychic ability. She taught me about dreams. She taught me about a lot of stuff. You know, we can spend this whole conversation speaking about the things I learned from my grandmother. This is before I was so-called conscious. I was a kid, but everyone has a certain path, and my path allowed me to get a lot of fruits from my grandmother. The other two beings are people you can Google. First is Brother Panic, Panic, and also Dr. Mitchell Gibson, or his followers affectionately call him Master Gibson. Tybro.com, Tybro.com. Those are the two physical teachers I found on the internet that seem to speak to. Whenever you come into the light, whenever you come into consciousness, most people go on Google, YouTube. That's how they find me. That's how they find y'all. But most people seek out, or am I crazy? What's going on? And when you seek out, when you have a question, the universe provides you an answer. So when I was going through my maturation, my spiritual maturation, those are the two beings that the universe guided me to. There were others, but those were by far the most two profound.
Word up.
Okay, so I
like
see.
That, I like that.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Come on, Lady Bounce.
Okay, so I'm looking on your shelf. Whenever we have a guest, I'm always intrigued by the books on their shelf. Because as a collector of books myself, I appreciate a good book. So I see on your shelf that you have your book, which I have that book, and I wrote in my book and I took notes, and I was kind of shocked when I did my noun purpose manual to discover what my true calling is, because it was something that I ran from for a long time. I ended up, I did everything else but what my calling was. And so when I read the book and started working through it, it led me back right to where I am, which is to be a teacher. But being a teacher was something that I was like, I don't like kids. I don't want nothing to do with kids. I'm not going to school for that. I was in broadcasting. I was going to be a radio DJ, or, I was a manager at different places. I was going to go into business. And I'm like, I look up and one day I'm a teacher and I love it now. And then when I work through the book, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I love it. So for people like me who run from their calling, what are some tips that you talk about in your book, The Purpose Manual, for finding that calling? Like, what should we do first if you don't know, besides buy your book?
Okay, I do you one better. I give the most important exercise, and you can define your purpose basically within a minute, to be honest.
Okay.
So I'll give you the biggest takeaway from that book, in my opinion. Obviously, it's like a workbook, so you can go through and work out things, and it's a workbook. Every book I create is going to give you some work to do. It's not going to be just intellectual. That's, in my opinion, that's the way to have the biggest breakthroughs. So, first, I like to call it now purpose, because your purpose can change as you change. So when people look at life purpose, they're like, oh my God, it's something grandiose, like something I'm gonna do the rest of my life, and they become overwhelmed, and you put too much pressure on yourself. Sort of like when kids go off to college, there's so many majors, too many minors, too many things. That's why most students are undecided. You know what I mean? Because it's too overwhelming. So look at it as your purpose right now. So ask yourself these 4 questions. What do I want to do more or have more of? What do I want to do less or have less of? What do I want to stop or not have anymore? And what do I want to start, or what do I want to start accumulating? Ask yourself those 4 questions. What do I want to start, stop, have more of, or have less of? you're going to come up with ideals and things that come up to your mind. And that, as everything, you have to pick and choose. And that's when prioritizing coming through. So after you get this list, it might be 10 things that you want to see what sticks out the most. It might be change your diet. It may be meditate more. It may be spend time with my children. It may be start a charity. It may be start walking, you know, but something is going to stick out. And like with everything, I'm all about practicality and applying things. So whatever it is, don't just let it live in your head, actually do it. And then that's when I recommend you take bite-sized chunks and pieces. Incremental progress is better than no progress. The way I like to describe this is if you save $1 every day, after a week, you got $7. That might get you a Starbucks. But after a month, you have $30. That may pay for a gym membership. After a year, if you saved $1, that's $365. You can buy groceries, you can buy an outfit, you can maybe pay your car, half of the rent more, you know what I mean? It's a lot more you can do with that. So the way to use that analogy is, say you wanted to write a book. You write one paragraph per day. At the end of the month, you're going to have 30 paragraphs. You'll be able to read that. Somebody can sit down and actually read that. After 365 days, you're going to have that many paragraphs, and that's probably going to be a book. So if you do something small every day, eventually you'll get to your end result. You want some reference for that as compound effect, and also called compound effect. That's a source I'll get for that. That's a book as well.
Yeah, the compound effect is really dope. I got the audio book for that. When I was driving, I would listen to that, and that's a real powerful. We talked about your books, which I had the books. So what's next for you as far as writing books? Are you writing another book? Do we have another book coming? And what's that book going to be about?
Alter Magic Manual will be my final piece of content as far as the altars. It's been completed for a while, but it's been in proofreading and editing mode for longer than I would like, to be honest. But that's the third book. It'll be on Amazon and also l9shop.com. I'm also writing books 4 and 5. One's going to deal with self-mastery, and the other's going to deal with spiritual business. So 2 books that's going to have you good to go. One thing about my books, they're very short, but there's no fluff. Like when you get Deity Linkage Manual, you'll be able to link with a deity at the end of that book. Trust me. When you take down
that's the thing I love. I think I love that no fluff, because I know a lot of books, it takes me a while to get through them because they have a lot of fluff, and that's dope. No fluff, like you said, straight to the point.
Yep. I mean, that's the era. I come from the era of straight no chaser. You feel me? we don't beat around it. It's like very straight and direct or whatever. So I like the end. Like when I read books, I don't want to read a bunch of fluff and stuff like that. You know, we live in a time where people's attention spans are short. And what I always recommend is go to Amazon and just read the reviews of my book. Deity Linkage got like 300 plus review at 4.8 stars, and you can just read what everybody else is saying. You know, so you don't have to believe me. You don't have to, if Pickett's bias, if Lady Bounce's bias. That's what I always recommend. Just go to Amazon, read reviews, and that's for any book, not just mine.
Word up.
Okay, so you kind of touched on it when you were talking about spirituality and health. So real quick, what are 2 things that we need to start with to get our health in order so that we can make our spiritual connection stronger? I know a lot of people, you know, January comes and they go, oh, I'm going to lose 500 pounds and I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to jog every day. And give us something realistic we can do to start small to get our health in order for our spirituality.
And with that, does your physical health contribute to your spiritual well-being?
Okay, let me address the first, and I'll address that one as well. That's a beautiful question. First, I like to start with start small. You know what I'm saying? I cannot reiterate that enough. Start small. If I had to recommend two things for a human to do in order to grow spiritually, one would be some form of meditation. And the reason I say some form of meditation, because there are many different meditation forms. If you're a person that don't want to sit still, then you want to do some moving meditation, like walking, like yoga, like Tai Chi, like Qigong, just something where you're moving. If you want to do a sitting meditation, then obviously you can sit, but say you want to listen to something. Well, listen to isochronic tones or binaural beats or meditative sounds or solfeggio harmonics. Just put in meditation sounds, you know, and you'll encounter a lot of different options. If you want to leave your eyes open, then you want to practice scrying meditation, which is what I do. You can Google candle scrying or go to my YouTube. I made an excellent video teaching you how to candle scry. So if you wanted to leave your eyes open, do some form of scrying. If you want to close your eyes, but you want to chant something, then do mantra meditation, where you chant a mantra over and over and over. And when I say mantra, don't think of mani padme hum. A mantra can just be love, 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 money. Just anything that you repeat over and over and over. And remember what I said about repetition, that's the easy way to get into a meditative zone, okay? So meditation would be my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be something that has you connect with something greater than just your physical ego. Call it God, call it your ancestors, call it the angels, call it the elementals, call it whatever you like. But some sort of practice, some sort of form of spirituality where you connect with the universe, God, the ancestors, or something outside of Pickett, Lady Bounce, and Ali. My probably claim to fame, if you would be altar work. I'm pretty sure if you put in altar work, I'm gonna pop up, you know, plentiful on Google or whatever. So I recommend having an ancestor altar / deity altar. You know, that's how I practice my devotion. But I don't want to tell people how they have to do it. I just want to give a parameter so you can find one yourself. Meditation and something that has you connect with God in the universe.
Word up. Word up. And we're starting to come towards the end of our time. But before that, I wanted you to briefly tell the people about your flagship program.
Spiritual Master Accelerator program, I would like to describe it as more like a community. It's a very, you know, I mean, you're in it. It's a community. Well, I noticed, and I did it with a subconscious community on Facebook, which was different, but it still was sort of a community. And what I realized by working with so many people as I have is a lot of people feel alone. A lot of people feel alone. They're usually the ambassador of their family or the black sheep, where they're the only one that's consciously practicing their spirituality outside of organized religion. So they feel alone. Their friends don't do it. So the Spiritual Master Accelerator program is a community first and foremost, and it's also structured in a way where it's going to have you look at yourself as the master. A lot of people right now are vying for your attention. Follow me here, read my books, buy my products. A lot of people are pulling for your energy. And to be honest, a lot of them want you subservient and under them for the rest of your life. The way I've been directed from my higher powers and the beings that I work with, I came here to help people look at themselves in the mirror and realize they're their own master and guru and not to follow no man. Because man does the same damn thing you do. So in my opinion, we need more people who are self-sufficient when it comes to their spiritual path, meaning that they don't need any guides, mentors, or gurus telling them what to do. We came into this world being spiritual. Look at a child. They're very spiritual before they become adulterated and their parents tell them, no, pull your pants up, don't do that. Hey, go over here, stop doing that. Why you drawing that? Why you listening to that? We condition our children just to be mini us's instead of allowing them to be who the hell they came here to be. So the program, in the long-winded way, is my attempt to have people look at themselves as their own master and guru, and equip them with the information and the support they need in order to make that happen.
Word up. I love that. And I love being a part of that community. It's incredible. It's like you say, when we have our meetings, it's the most non-judgmental place that you can be. It's supportive. You know what I'm saying? It's a real love for one another, and we all support each other's, you know what I'm saying, dreams and aspirations on a spiritual path. So it's real dope. It's real, real dope. Well, we're about to wrap this up, but we could talk forever. So we definitely want to have you back.
Yes.
As soon as possible. Like I said before, I would love for you to come and be an in-person guest. So hopefully some of this madness, this scientific madness, constructed madness dies down soon so that we can have you in person and chop it up and talk more. We want to really thank you for coming on the show, and tell the people once again how they can get in touch with you.
Just Google me, S. Ali Myers. I would say that's the best. I have a lot of different things, like what, 3, 4, 5 websites. You know, I'm YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, and I would just say Google me. Word
up, word up. Now to one of the part of the show that everybody really likes to dig into. Boom, 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 boom. Brain science.
All right.
Drop some brain science.
All right, let me drop some brain science on you, which is, our brain science covers the why your brain functions the way it functions, and ways to make your brain work better. So, how can you achieve higher levels of consciousness and avoid your old patterns? There are 7 levels of consciousness, and even after you reach the highest level, it is important to understand that these levels are like radio stations. You can tune into different stations, and many people switch which one they're listening to at different times of the day. They also switch at different energy levels and at different work or life settings. The station you are listening to controls the filters through which you look at life, and by extension, your feelings, thoughts, actions, and results. It can be easy not to notice when you switch stations, or how often you tune into ones that aren't serving you. That's why it is vital to have a clear, objective way to assess your level and patterns of consciousness. So really quick, we're gonna list these when we post the show, but your 7 levels of consciousness, we'll start from the bottom. Your unconscious brain is your victim brain. It's apathy, it's lethargy, it's feeling like a loser. The next level is the conflict part of your consciousness, where you're just angry, you're defiant, you're losing. Then you reach into responsibility, which is forgiveness and cooperation, having more of an I win attitude for yourself. Then you reach into your concern, where you have compassion and service to others, and you have a more of a you win attitude. Moving up the ladder, we have reconciliation, which is peace, acceptance, and it's a win-win for you and the other people you are involved with. And then synthesis is your joy, your wisdom, and it's a feeling of oneness with you and the people around you. And the highest level of consciousness, which we will all strive to achieve, is the non-judgment. Your absolute passion, creation, and intention with every move you make, every thought you think, everything that comes out of your mouth. So where it talked about earlier about us switching between those stations, throughout your day, you are switching between your 7 levels of consciousness. But the ultimate goal is to always stay in that top level where you are just at peace, you're speaking peace, you're moving through the universe with intention of creating peace for yourself and those around you, which should be your ultimate goal every day. If you're here to be combative or to be, just evil, you might want to just do some soul searching to fix that part of yourself. Nobody can fix that part for you but you. So dive into that consciousness, get your life right. As my good friend Tamar says, get your mind right. Final thoughts, pick it.
Yo, I like that. Ali, what's your take on that in 30 seconds or less? What do you think about that brain science?
I'm big on anything that will help you grow and evolve. So a person can hear that and they like, oh, that makes sense. Like it made sense to me. And somebody else can hear that and say, oh, that's weird. Who made that up and stuff like that. But like with everything, use what works for you and just discard the rest. But I vibe with it.
Word up. That's the thing I like that you talk about in our community is you always let us know to do what works best for you. You know what's right for you. And what's right for y'all is if you check out the Fly With Us podcast, check out S. Ali Myers, Google him. He's on YouTube, Instagram. Don't too much mess with Facebook.
No.
Because Facebook can be a confusion factory. I think that a lot of people are starting to kind of veer away from it. The reason we we mostly use it is because of the show, but other than that, we kind of stay away from it too. So do what's best for you. Just going to keep you on the path. We'd like to thank everybody for flying with us. Lady Bounce.
We out of here.
Peace.